Healing time. As I first got interested in art and painting, I bought my very first brushes and colors. I watched some simple tutorials on YouTube and started to learn by myself, exploring to find my own way of painting. It took me some years to really find my own style, but no matter what technique or colors I've been using during these years, my one and only inspiration has always been nature. I live in this beautiful place surrounded by endless forests and lakes in the north of Sweden, and it's impossible not to feel inspired by the beauty around me. No matter if I create music or video or photography or paintings, nature is always the heart in everything I do, and the constant changing seasons is reflected in my paintings. Last year, I was picking blueberries in the forest. I got an idea to try to make my own paint out of the blueberries. As I tried it out, I really liked it, and I quickly got curious, then began to explore more of the natural pigments around me and learn to make paint out of them. I found a lot of beautiful pigments from the fire stoves that keep our house warm in the winter. I used charcoal to get black pigments, and from the ashes, I could get many beautiful tones of gray and brown. Stones were also a great source to all different kinds of pigments. Mud, dirt, and sand also turned into beautiful colors. It felt like a whole new door opened up in front of me, and I fell in love with making my own paint. It didn't matter that it suddenly took me way more time to finish a painting. The whole process of picking the materials, then preparing the pigments, made it all feel more meaningful, and it gave my paintings a whole new dimension. I love to feel the texture of the natural materials, and when I look at a finished painting, I know exactly the story of every single pigment, where I picked them and how they ended up on the canvas. So, now, I'm not only inspired by nature when I paint, but nature has become part of my paintings, and I really loved that. Ever since, I've got tons of questions from people asking how I make paint out of these natural pigments. So, I thought I would share it step by step, the whole process of how I make my own paint, and remember when it comes to creativity. I think that the best way to create art is not to be limited to one way of doing something. I think that the key is to be playful, curious, try new things, and not get stuck in how we are supposed to do something or how other people do it. Be free and have fun and play around. See what happens and what works for you. Every time I paint, I see it as an experiment because I never know what the result is going to be. Absorb what inspires you and then let yourself bloom in your own unique way. It's February now, and we're halfway through the winter. There's only 3 months to go until all the snow melts and the spring arrives in the month of May. Thinking about spring makes me very happy. It gives me energy to know that soon enough, everything will come to life again. But now it's February, and we're still in the heart of winter. But this other half of winter, it's always a bit easier, because for every day that passes by, the sun rises higher in the sky, and we get more and more daylight for each day. And my paintings and photo prints, and all the things that we create. We've been working on this for a year now, and we've gone through many mistakes in the way. But we've learned a lot, and it was a fun process to build our very own company. So my husband Johan has been spending most of his time in the Smithy, with the jewelry making to keep up with the custom orders and our very few designs that we've been selling this year. Just enough to keep it running while we build up our new webshop. I'm gonna write a birthday card to Rachel. Happy birthday to you! We have some good news. For us, it's good news. We have this new label printer, which means that it'll be easier for us now to print out the labels. We don't have to cut and tape by hand. We just print it out. I'll show you. And my mom, Anita, has been focusing a lot on creating our new web shop, which is something really time-consuming since we want a really good site this time that can handle orders from all over the world and make it easier for both us and our customers. I'm really glad that my mother knows computer programming and web development. My brother, Philip, is also very involved in this, and we've all been working hard to make our ideas and to make our business a little bit easier to handle. Another thing we've been working on, it's our new Smithy and workroom for the jewelry. When we moved to our house in May last year, we wanted to move our jewelry business into the beautiful old barn that's next to our house. But before we could do that, it needed a lot of renovations. After many months of renovation and waiting, we're almost done with our new workroom. So, hopefully this month, we'll be able to move our jewelry business from our living room in our old house to this new place in our beautiful homestead. And I've been spending a lot of time here lately. In my painting studio, I've finally got inspiration to paint again. My studio was trashed by a man back in September, and some of my paintings were destroyed. After that, I just haven't had any inspiration to paint again. Until now, I have spent all my free time here lately, and it feels so good to be back again and continue experimenting with making my own paint from natural pigments. I've been painting a lot with ashes and charcoal. Now, during the winter, we make fires in the stoves every day to keep the house warm. And therefore, we get a lot of ashes and charcoal, and they make beautiful pigments. I just love to think about how those gray, black, and brown colors made from the ashes and charcoal actually kept our house warm before they got a new life and turned into art. And before the snow came, I made sure to pick beautiful sand and dirt and stones that I could use as pigments now during the winter. So I look forward to spending many more nights here now. The summer is coming to an end. It's already late August, and I can really feel how autumn is getting closer for every day that goes by. But I think that the end of the summer is a wonderful time. Sometimes even more wonderful than the summer itself. It's still green and warm outside, but the air feels more clean and fresh, and the mosquitoes have finally left us alone. Almost. But, of course, it's getting darker again. No more bright nights or midnight sun. But in some strange way, the darkness always feels so welcoming in autumn, so comfortable and calming. I think that the light in the summer focuses more on the energy outwards, like people, social life, activities, movement, and the physical world. And then it's autumn and the darkness arrives. It feels like the focus swifts more into our inner world, and it opens up space for feelings, reflections, and creativity. A time to nurture our soul. I really love the constantly changing seasons that we have here. It makes every month feel new and unknown. And it's a good reminder that nothing really lasts forever. And I guess that's the beauty of it. Another good thing about August is that the forest is full of berries. The blueberries are my favorite, and the lindenberries started getting ripe as well. And in our garden, we have a lot of raspberries, both yellow and red. And we have black corinth, which is a huge favorite of mine, and red corinth. And we also have gooseberries, which is very new to me, but it tastes very good. I want to make sure to pick enough berries for the whole winter. I think that eating berries every day during the winter can help to stay strong and healthy. This year, picking lots of blueberries is more important than ever, since I found a new way of using them rather than just eating or drinking them. Picking berries is also strongly connected to memories from my childhood. Every summer, when we came here, we picked lots of berries. We were out all day, and it was such a special feeling to come home in the evening and make homemade berry jam. Being out in the forest like this makes me think so much of my grandparents and how much I miss them. They grew up and lived here. They have probably been walking in the exact same spots once in a while. Picking berries. That always happens in autumn. We just started making fire for the first time after the summer. When the pipe is cold, it takes some time for the smoke to flow the right way. But after a while, the fire was perfect. This is usually what I do with most of the berries that I pick. I use a steam called saftmaja to steam the berries into a juice. And I add no sugar. It's only the berries and water. And I tell you, it smells heavenly in the kitchen while doing this. When the juice is done, I usually put it in small bottles to keep in the freezer. In that way, I can just take out a bottle from our freezer whenever I need some berry juice. As I told you earlier, I have found a new way of using the blueberries. Rather than to just drink it, I make paint out of it. I first got the idea earlier this summer while I was out with Johan looking for stones in the forest just beyond our house. I found this yellow, rusty sand and I was thinking, what if I could make my own paint out of this beautiful sand? And about 3 weeks ago, I was out with my mom picking blueberries. And as I saw the blue color from the blueberries on my fingers, I once again got the thought of making paint from the natural pigment. I just didn't really know how to make it into paint, with pigments that will last even as it dries. But one night in my studio, I experimented with these natural pigments from the blueberries and the sand, and made my very own paint out of it. And I was completely mesmerized. I immediately started thinking about other ways of finding beautiful colors in the nature around me. I looked for stones in different colors in our garden. And then I bought this stone crushing machine to make the stones into sand. And I took carbon from the fire to make black pigment, and ashes to make gray and brown. It didn't matter that making my own paint from nature took me so much time. Picking the berries, finding the stones, and preparing the paint. I fell in love with the whole process. My absolute favorite tea is a mix of pine needles and chaga mushroom. I've been drinking it a lot during this winter. It's really healthy and it's really easy to make. The best thing of all is that it tastes like you drink the forest. I think that the combination of pine tree and the chaga from the birch tree makes it taste just like how it smells in the northern forests, like the ones where I live. Actually, this tea is best to do during the winter because that's when the pine trees contain most C vitamins. But honestly, I drink this tea mostly because of the wonderful taste. Spring came unusually early this year. Because we have this one thing that happens every year that comes as a true sign that winter is finally letting go and spring is arriving. I call it the River of Spring. As the snow begins to melt really quickly, it forms into a river that goes straight through the village. And it only lasts for a couple of days, or up to a week or two, depending on how much snow we have. Usually this happens around the end of April. But this year, it came a whole month early, and of course, I couldn't be happier. Every year when this happens, I feel this indescribable joy and happiness. It's like the highlight of the spring to me. I can spend hours outside by the river. I like to imagine that I help melt the snow and that I help the water to flow better. It's just so wonderful to hear the sound of the water outside our house in the evenings. It really feels like everything comes to life again, both in nature, but also in myself. It's like it's been in a deep sleep for a long time, and now I wake up, and it's like I feel everything so intense. Yeah, it just feels like I'm in love with life, with nature, with everything around me. It's just such a beautiful, wonderful feeling, and it feels the same every spring. Well, it actually feels even more intense for every new spring that I get to experience. It's like I just came to this earth and I feel this deep wonder for the beauty around me and a deep gratitude for being alive. But of course, April is the most dirty and muddy time of the year. It's actually not so beautiful outside at this time. If you have a dog, it's gonna get so dirty inside after every walk. But even if it looks like a mess outside, it feels beautiful. It just feels so special to finally see the ground and the grass and the earth again after so many months with snow, and to just touch the soil again. I've missed it so much. So, this week, apart from helping the snow to melt, I've also spent most of the time in the Smithy with Johan. It's been long days and long nights, and it's definitely been challenging for us both to go through so much work. Sometimes it just felt like we would never get done and we would be stuck in the smithy forever. Both me and Johan are very passionate about our work. When we have a very strong goal and a strong feeling of what we want to do, there's just no stopping us. We are not afraid of working really hard, as long as we feel passion for it. But already now, it feels a lot easier since we begin to see an end of these intense months. Since we begin to see an end of these intense months with so much work. We are soon done designing our new collection, and we have some really exciting plans and visions for the future regarding our jewelry making. So, all this hard work has definitely been worth it. And now, there's only 1.5 months left until we move to a new house and get some more space. Then, we don't need to have the smithy in our living room anymore. More space will make everything so much easier for us. Space! The early spring came as a big, wonderful surprise when I needed it the most. Another thing that I love about spring is that you finally get to work with plants again. So I have spent some evenings out in the old barn to put a lot of different seeds in the soil, which hopefully will grow into beautiful plants and flowers in the summer. I have always loved gardening, but now, as we're gonna get a new house and a beautiful garden, it feels like a whole new level. So I have read a lot now to really get the knowledge on what plants would be perfect for our garden. I have focused mostly on herbs and medical plants. Also flowers that are really good for butterflies and bees. Because, yes, we have decided to start beekeeping and have our own bees. That is something I have dreamt about for so many years. But now, as we can have our very own house and this beautiful garden, it feels like a perfect timing. Bees are actually so important for our planet, and I really look forward to making a paradise for them in our garden. Since we're gonna move in a couple of weeks, it is a mess in our house right now. So it's been so difficult to find a place for all these plants. I only have this one window for them, so they have to share the little glimpses of sunlight that reaches in every day. I know it's not the perfect condition for some of the plants, and I've told them that they will probably have a rough start, but if they just manage to grow into life and keep holding on these weeks, I promise I will give them the dream life of any plant. Soon we will move, and there will be plenty of space for all of us to grow. I just love to finally be able to walk freely in the forest again, without the meters of snow, and just to see all the colors again, the colors of green and yellow. It's just as if I see them for the very first time. And soon, as the frozen ground has melted, I can begin to tap birch sap, which is also one of the highlight movements of the spring. It's an old myth here, saying that drinking birch sap is a way of regaining all your energy after a long cold winter. And I definitely believe in that. So, in May, I always drink birch sap every day. The winters here are usually very long, cold, and dark. And I have to admit, it's a challenge for me to keep the energy during these 6 months of the year. Last winter was really tough. I was constantly sick and constantly freezing. And I've never felt so weak in my whole life. Now it's October and the winter is here again, but this time I want it to be different. I don't want to let another winter drain me of energy and happiness because of these cold and dark months. And the only way to really do so is to face it and change the way I feel and think about it, to not see it as my enemy. That's how I feel about this winter. I don't want the cold to control me. I don't want a winter to drain me of energy. Instead, I want the cold to be a source of power. I want the winter to awaken my soul and make me feel alive. And to do so, I need to face it. I need to accept it with my whole being. And I don't want to fight it. I want to surrender, to see that I'm stronger than I think, and to prove to myself that life truly begins outside our comfort zone. When do I feel most alive? Is it when I'm warm and comfy lying in my bed, scrolling on Instagram? No, I feel 1,000 times more alive when walking into ice-cold water. And I can feel the blood rushing through my body, doing all it can to keep me alive. At that moment, I'm totally present. There's no tomorrow. There's no past, just now. And I think that's one of the best feelings one can ever feel. I'm ready for winter. I've been working on a painting for the last 2 months. I have spent many days and nights in my studio painting new layers and just exploring the world of colors. I was inspired by the northern mountains, the cold winds, the first snow, and the sound of ice. Something that I love to find inspiration from when I paint. In the end process, I added blades of 23-karat gold. I wanted it to be a symbol for that even in the coldest of winds, there can be moments of golds and rays of hope. It turned into a big acrylic painting, and I gave it the name Golden Winds, and a white wooden frame made of Swedish pine tree. Just like many other artists, I always struggled with setting a price on my paintings. So, this time, instead of just putting it up for sale on my webshop, I decided to put it up for auction on eBay. Have you ever wondered why the Swedish people are so strong and resistant and so full of inner peace and harmony? Well, let me tell you our secret. Every summer we practice the art of Mosquito meditation. If you ever come to Sweden, you should try this delightful way of mindfulness practice, and it's all free. I can assure you that this is the best way to learn how to deal with annoying and distracting things happening in your life, and how to stay sane when life just feels itchy. Today, I'm going to tell you the story of my journey. I made the most important decision of my life in 2010. I decided to leave my life in my hometown. I left the apartment and quit my studies. My heart was longing for something else. Nature and silence. I moved to this place, a little village with 10 inhabitants. A village where I had my roots since 12 generations back. So, actually, it was like coming home. When I first came here, I had no plan, no money, and no job. But I had a dream. I wanted to find a way to make a living so that I could stay at this beautiful place that felt like home in my heart. The first years here were very challenging. Long, cold winters, a constant worry about money, and an old house where it was a full-time job just to keep warm. There was a time when my limits were constantly tested, but during this time, I found my passion in life. I started with photography and filming and writing. And I started a little blog so I could share moments of my new life, as well as express my love for nature in photos and words. I also bought a dog that became my best friend ever. Living so close to nature awakened something in me. I felt an urge to create, and it became my biggest passion to continue creating. Moving people with my art. It's now been 8 years since I moved, and I still live here in my little house under the northern lights. From here, I run my own business. I spend my days doing photography, filming, creating music, painting, writing, and all the things that my heart wants to express. And still, my wish is to give something beautiful to this world, something that breaks through our barriers and reaches the soul. I have learned so much during these years, most of all, that feeling grateful for the small things in life is the key to the big things. That it's only we, ourselves, that set limits of what is possible and not. And to have patience, never give up, and never be afraid of losing your feet on the ground. Sometimes that can be the best thing you will ever do.